Hi everyone. In this video lab, we'll be doing a deep dive on IAM policies, or also called the identity-based AWS policies, since these are applied to AWS identities directly, like user, role, or group. We'll create our very first IAM policy, show how easy it is to create excessive permissions in AWS, discuss the not IAM parameters, and finally, we'll add the policy to a principal. Take a look at the related article for this video at cloudsecuritymasterclass.com. AWS policies are permission statements which specify what actions can be performed on a particular AWS service. Some policies are created by AWS and are available in the AWS policies console, which are called the AWS managed policies. So let's take a look at some of the AWS managed policies which are created by AWS for you and are available by default in the IAM console. So click on IAM. I'll go to policies here. And I see all the list of policies here, and you see the type here. I can click on filter type, and you see the three different type of policies. So let's click on AWS managed policy first, and you'll see these are policies created by AWS and are pertaining to specific services. Like this is for Direct Connect read-only access. This is for Glacier read-only. This Marketplace full access, VPN service full access. So the list of policies are specific to a particular service, and it either grants full access, read access, or edit access. And the second type of policy here is AWS managed job function, which is exactly as it says. It's pertaining to a particular job function. It can be support user, view-only access, a billing administrator, a database administrator. One thing to notice here is the administrator access policy. It actually provides full access to all the AWS services. So this is essentially your super admin role or a root role, something that provides star, meaning it provides all permissions to all of the services. So be watchful of who you give this particular policy to. The final type here is the customer management, and these are the custom created policies based on your own needs and demands. You can pick any service, you can give any policy, you give any permission to a service, and that's what custom managed policies are about. Okay, so let's create our very first IAM policy. Imagine a use case where we have to provide permissions to get object from an S3 bucket and give that permissions to a particular IAM user, but only from a particular source IP address. So let's click on create policy here. And there are two ways to create a policy. Either you can go the visual route where you select the service, actions, resources, and conditions from the console, or you can click on JSON and then create your own JSON policy package. Let's go the visual route first. So in our use case, we are granting S3 get object permissions and for a particular resource. So we selected service first, which is our S3. Then we selected the particular action which we want to give permissions to, get object in this case. And finally, we're going to select the resource. And I have already created an S3 bucket, which is this one. And this has a particular object in it. So let's assume that for our use case, we want to give permissions to this particular resource. I'll come here and copy the ARN, go back to my IAM console, and click on add ARN here, and click on add. And then the final piece here is restricting access to a particular source IP address. So we have this request conditions here, and these are basically optional parameters that can be used for restricting access for specific use cases. If you have a mission critical S3 bucket, which you want to restrict for a particular source IP address, or you want to protect with MFA, you will use conditions for that matter. So in our case, we're going to select source IP here. Can I go back to my console to go ipecho.net/plain to get my source IP address, copy the IP, paste it here, the /32 to signify that it's just one IP that I want to restrict with, and that's it. And just to show you how this policy looks on the JSON side, if you click on JSON, you'll see a policy is comprised of version and statement. Those are the primary two things. There can be multiple statements. For our case, it's just one statement here, which says allow this action on this resource from and restricted based on the source IP, which is mentioned here. Okay, so one important security aspect that you should be mindful of with IAM policies is that the policy does not need to have specific values for the action over here or the resource over here. You can pretty much put star here, which means that this policy now allows all the S3 actions applicable to the S3 service on this resource. Or you can put a star for the entire action, which then means then you're allowing all the actions for all the AWS services. Or you can also have a star in here. Now this means that this particular action is allowed on all the resources. So star pretty much means allow all, or pretty much means applicable to all. So the other thing that you can also do here is that you can also put a star at both of these places. Now what happens is that you're saying that this policy, to whoever this policy may be attached to, now can perform all the actions for all the services on any resource available in this AWS account, which is very powerful. So if I can show you here in the IAM screen, if I go to policies and bring up the policy that is applied for administrator access, and as you can see, the description here says that it provides full access to all AWS services and resources. And you see the policy here is exactly what we were discussing just a while back. It's action star, resource star. So again, be very careful when applying stars here. So I'll bring this back to where we were before. And for our use case, we are just creating S3 get object action on this particular resource for a particular source IP. I'm going to click on next tags, next review, give it a name, which is already there, get S3 object, and click on create policy. Okay, so now that we have created the policy, I just wanted to show you one more thing in that policy. So if I go inside my policy and click on edit policy here, go back to my JSON view. So just want to show you these negative blocks that you can put in an IAM policy. So if I put a not here before my action, this policy is still valid. And now it means that this policy applies to all of the AWS actions but this particular action, or except this particular action. All the other actions are being allowed by this policy. Now there can be like probably 1,000 or 2,000 of actions in AWS. So this policy now applies to all of those actions except this particular action. Similarly, you can also put a not here in front of a resource to mean that this policy is applied to all the resources except this particular resource. So these are again advanced IAM policy constructs that are, by the way, not available to you in the visual editor. So if I click on the visual editor, it says that these policy statements are not supported. And this is at the time of creating this video. Maybe they are available in the future. Okay, so let me click on cancel here and let me show you how we can add this policy to the AWS user. So I'm going to go back to the users menu, select my user, and I'm already in the permissions page, and there are two options to apply this policy. Either you can add permission here or you can add an inline policy. Now the difference between these two is that an inline policy is something that is only attached to this particular user and cannot be used for any other user or role in AWS. So quick demonstration of that. Let me just select my service here, and I'm gonna select the action, and for demonstration purposes I'm just going to select all users here, and I will give this a name, inline S3 object policy. Now click on create policy. Now you see this policy is directly attached to this user here, it says inline policy. If I go back to my policies menu, I wouldn't see this inline policy here. And the reason is because this policy is only meant to be attached to this particular user only. It cannot be shared with other users or roles. So that's what an inline policy is. So I'm going to delete this because I want to attach the other policy. I'm going to click on add permissions, attach existing policies directly, and search for the one that I created before. S3 get object. Get S3 object and click on review and add permissions. So now my user has the get S3 object policy and it says manage policy here, not the inline policy. So now that the policy is attached to the user, let's see how this policy works. Let's see if the policy is actually working. So I'm going to go to security credentials here, and I'm going to create a new access key for this user. I'm going to copy the access key ID, go back to my console, type in AWS configure, put in the access key ID, copy the secret access key. Now I know the key is visible, but I'm going to delete this after this video. And that's it. So just confirming if I have the right key here. STS, AWS STS get caller identity. And this shows that this is user 1 from this AWS account. And yeah, that's it. So next, now assuming all the privileges are working as expected, I should be able to AWS S3 CP, which is the copy command, and copy file. I'm just going to copy the S3 URI from here. Click on paste and just download it to this location. And yeah, download works. If I do an ls, this file is right here. Now, just to show you, just to double confirm if the policy is working as expected, because we did put in our source IP address as well. So if I check my IP address here, this is 67.188.92.120. And if I go to my policy section, open up the policy here, get S3 object, add the policy, and yeah, the source IP is same. But if I were to change this just a little bit, maybe to 122, just to see if the policy is not working, the IP address is changed, click on review policy, click on save changes. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to type in the same command. It generally takes 30 seconds for these policies to take in effect, so it might not be right away. Press enter now. Okay, so instantly we see that there is an error occurred, and this is AWS's way of telling us that this action is forbidden. So yes, the policy works. The source IP restriction also works. So this is it for the lab walkthrough. Keep watching out for more videos and articles at cloudsecuritymasterclass.com.